Guide dogs and taxis now, because it can be very, very frustrating sometimes when you order a taxi and it turns up late or it doesn't turn up at all. It can be a right pain in the backside, can't it? Now, imagine when the taxi finally does turn up, you're not allowed to get in. It's a situation that's faced by many blind people who are refused a ride because some drivers don't want guide dogs on board, despite the fact that it's against the law to do so. Now, the charity Guide Dogs says research suggests the drivers who do get prosecuted are being issued with small fines. The charity's holding a mass lobby later, which will see more than 100 guide dog owners visiting Parliament to call for tougher sentences for taxi and minicab drivers who turn away assistance dog owners. I mean, it's not just those guide dogs for the blind. It is also hearing dogs, assistance dogs. Guide dog user Jade Sharp has experienced problems herself. She's with us on the programme this morning, and also Helen Honsvet from the charity Guide Dogs. Good morning to you both. And Jade, if I can start with you first of all, what sort of things have you experienced?
Well, I've been refused by 9 Uber drivers in total, and last May, me and a friend got refused by 4 Uber drivers in one day going to a concert in Croydon.
My goodness me. Now, for those who don't know, we don't have a Uber in this part of the world. These are the drivers that you summon on an app, isn't it?
Yes, it's all done by smartphone on the app. You can book a Uber minicab on the app, and it will tell you sort of how far away they are, and then you can either message the driver or you can call the driver, which is what I did last May to inform him that I had Brody, my guide dog, travelling with me.
And how does it feel when you're told you can't come on board? I mean, it is illegal, but how does it make you personally feel?
Well, it is against the law, and it makes me feel upset, angry, frustrated, because Brody's there to promote my independence, help me to be independent, and all these barriers are just getting in the way.
Inconvenience, if nothing else, isn't it, really? And, obviously missing out on all sorts of different things. Helen, if I could bring you in here, I know you're lobbying Parliament today. I mean, how big an issue is this for assistance dog owners?
It's huge. It's happening a lot. So we did a survey last year which found that 75% of assistance dog owners at one point have received an access refusal, and taxis and minicabs are the most frequent place for guide dog owners. But it's not only the frequency, but it's the impact that it has on people as well, and their confidence in going out. I've heard of people limiting themselves to cab companies or places when they're out where they know that they will be welcomed, which is opposite to the point of a guide dog, which is to give you the independence to go where you want, when you want.
So those who are refusing can be fined, but the fines are not enough.
No. So we did some research looking at different licensing authorities and the fine levels that they've given out. And many of these fines are as low as £50 or £100. And as I said, the huge ongoing impact that can have on someone's confidence, that's just woefully low and just clearly not an adequate deterrent. The maximum fine at the moment is £1,000. We think that needs to go up to £2,500, and that there also needs to be disability equality training for all taxi and minicab drivers as a condition of their licence to make sure that they all understand the law.
What about those taxi drivers that just don't want to have a dog in, might think it's smelly and they just don't want it in there? Other customers might get in afterwards and think, oh, what's that?
They shouldn't be a minicab driver or a taxi driver if they don't want to comply with the law.
But you can see their point though, can't you?
No, I can't. It's a legal imperative that they, unless they have a medical exemption certificate, that they need to carry an assistance dog in their car. There's no reason other than that would other than analogy that would be acceptable for them to turn away somebody. We're talking about people being left in very vulnerable situations. I've heard, people being out in 11 o'clock at night in the rain and being stood up by a taxi or minicab for someone to say, oh, I don't want my taxi to get dirty. That is completely unacceptable.
And Jade, you obviously feel very, very passionate about this. And what's your message to those cab drivers who may be listening right now?
I'm just trying to raise awareness and to show that this is not acceptable and it needs to stop.
And Jade, this obviously how much does it limit where you go?
Well, I've kind of got to the point now where if I'm going out and about, I kind of think to myself, shall I take Brody with me or shall I use my white cane, my stick, because I don't want another refusal.
And Helen, is there a difference? I mean, Jade mentioned these Uber drivers. Is there a difference between those, the mini cabs, and the Hackney carriages? Are some better than others, or is it across the board?
So I think that there are less access refusals that happen with Hackney drivers. However, Uber is no better or worse than other minicab firms. This is happening across the country all of the time.
So you're heading on to Parliament today. What do you hope to achieve?
So what we're asking for is to have the law changed so that the the fine level is increased from £1,000 to £2,500, and also to make that disability equality training a condition of people's licence. We are so lucky in this country to have the Equality Act, but we just think that it needs to be a little bit strengthened because at the moment it's not preventing these access refusals from happening.
OK, thank you very much indeed for both joining us on the show today. Jade Sharp, who's a guide dog user, and Helen Honsvet from the Guide Dogs charity. Be interested to hear from you if you're a cab driver. What do you think about what's going on? Let's talk to Jock Davis, who's secretary of the Ipswich Station Taxi Tenants Association. Jock, good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Thanks for joining us. You heard what they had to say there. What do you say to the guide dog users who are being turned away?
Well, I'm on both sides of the fence, really. I would have thought that be a little more research on their part. If they were to, I mean, like for instance, myself, I drive a wheelchair, which is easily accessible. It's big, and it can usually be cleaned out by a good wash, which is unlike a luxury Mercedes that somebody's just spent 27, 30 grand on. And if it's raining and you get a dog in the back seat, that's not very good. So I am on both sides of the fence, really. I would have thought a little bit more research and actually asking taxi drivers on the rank if they do, if they don't. If they do, take the number. If they don't, forget them.
The thing is, it's a legal requirement. They cannot turn that guide dog and the user away. It's against the law.
It's against the law. Yeah.
I can understand what you're saying. If you've spent a lot of money on a posh car, and there's nothing like a smell of a wet dog. I know, and I can understand what you're saying. But it is against the law. They cannot not take that person and the animal in.
Okay. Well, you can refuse if you don't think. I mean, maybe this is a different scenario. If you feel that something's going to... I mean, these guys are just out to earn a living. That's all they're doing. They're not against anybody. They're just trying to earn a living the best way they can. And I noticed that Uber was mentioned, yet another threat to the taxi business. But, it's not a vendetta out to people who are disabled. It's just people trying to keep their house in order so they can earn some money. Sorry, it's the same saying you've just bought a brand new 3-piece suite, and dog comes in, a wet dog, it's smelly. Yeah, he can lie on my sofa, no problem.
So a wet dog. The smell, that's going to potentially cause some damage to the seats, to the interior, is it?
Not so much that, Mark. It's the same as if somebody is ill in the cab. They've been drinking too much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If someone throws up in your cab, it stinks and it's there for a while, isn't it?
It's not the actual event that's the problem. It's what happens afterwards. You did, or somebody mentioned about the next customer getting in. They will, and we've seen it. And ask any cab driver, they'll tell you, a passenger will get in, smell it if the guy's been smoking or he's been sick or a dog's been in it, and will get out again and go to another cab. So that guy's lost that fare.
OK, the Rev's just sent me a text. He says, what's wrong with having a special seat cover kept in the boot if needed? Put a blanket over the seat.
Oh, yeah, OK. Oh, yeah, it's always easy for people to say that, but when you're actually doing it, it's not so easy when you're trying to earn a living.
OK, Jock, thank you very much. Secretary of the Ipswich Station Taxi Tenants Association. Can see both sides, he says there. Will's on the line to us now in Ipswich. I think another cabbie. Morning, Will.
Morning, Mark.
Thanks for joining us on the show this morning. What do you think about these people being turned away?
I'm very disappointed now. I mean, at the end of the day, the gentleman talked about the dog being soaking wet, but it's only water. That'll soon dry. And I've had wheelchair taxis about 12 years now, and I wouldn't dream of not unless somebody's got an allergic reaction against dogs, then there's no excuse, no reason at all.
So you've got a
wheelchair vehicle.
Yeah, you've got a wheelchair vehicle there. So so you're quite happy to have the assistance dogs come on board, no problems?
Yeah, no worries at all. And I mean, I'm fortunate. I've got a Blingo, and the dogs can sit in the back, and the passenger can sit beside them.
Right. Well, what about those who have got, a posh car with, nice upholstery inside? Not all of them are the kind of cabs that you describe.
No, I think you just answered that, Mark, earlier. When you turn around and say you can buy a dog seat, even a blanket, dog's not going to be there that long, is it?
Have you seen people turned away?
No, I've heard.
So it does go on?
I think it does, yeah, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the show this morning. Love to hear from you on this one as well. 01473 212121. Guide dog users, assistance dog users lobbying Parliament today. They say they are fed up with being refused entry to minicabs, Uber vehicles and Hackney carriages on occasions just because they have a dog with them. What do you think? 01473 212121. Perhaps you've been in that situation as a cabbie. What do you think? And as a guide dog user, assistance user, dog user, what do you think? Out to assistance dogs being stopped from going into cabs. There's a big lobby of Parliament today. We heard from one cab driver saying, look, if you've got a nice car, you don't want a smelly dog in there. Simon's in Martlesham. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, Mark.
Thanks for joining us. What do you think of what you've been hearing?
Absolutely bemused by the responses by some of the cab drivers. I cannot believe that they think that they can choose which laws they will and they won't adhere to, especially when it comes to discrimination of visually impaired people with their assistance dogs. I find it absolutely staggering.
So there ought to be, I don't know, a blanket or something they can put down if one goes...
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to stop a blanket or a sheet or something going down if they are concerned about it. But guide dogs, and I'm sure all assistance dogs, are trained to either sit in the boot or in a footwell. We don't have them leaping over the seats of our own cars, let alone our family cars, let alone in taxis and restaurants and things like that. So there's no reason why a guide dog should be sat on a seat anyway. So the complaint by cab drivers of, well, we don't want hairs on the seats is largely unfounded. OK, Simon, thank you. I just want to bring in Mike as well. Mike, good morning to you. Thanks for getting in touch. What do you think of what you've been hearing this morning?
Well, good morning. I've initially only just caught the conversation because I was indoors and I'm now out.
Yep.
I caught with the chairman of the station taxi drivers guy came in, and your previous call is quite correct. Assistance dogs are trained to sit in the footwell of the vehicle. They are specifically trained for that. And as Simon said, in restaurants, they do exactly the same thing. They sit at the owner's feet.
So there is, in your opinion, there's no excuse whatsoever for turning one away?
Actually against the law. It contravenes DDA.
This Disability Awareness, yeah.
Discrimination Act. And it's actually against the law. And his links to people being sick in the car, that's a spurious link. And he really should be ashamed of himself and look very hard at the way. I mean, I know his role is to defend his members, but his role is also to shove his hands up and say, yes, we will instruct our members. But
you do take the point that he was making, and I think he was making the point that if you've got a lovely 35, 40 grand car that you've just bought, right. There's a smelly wet dog coming in. You
don't put a 40 grand 16 plate on the road as a cab. You just don't do it, Mark. I used to be a cab driver, and I was a chairman of my local association. And you put on a decent car. I had decent cars. But I would always take an assistance dog.
The Lobby of Parliament today, they're lobbying to try and get the fines increased for those who refuse. Do you support what they're doing?
Yes, yeah. It's been only contention in the trade for many, many years, but they're using spurious arguments. They are disingenuous.
Mike, thank you very much for getting in touch. Appreciate it. 01473 212121. This Lobby of Parliament happening today. Around 100 assistance dogs and their owners will be lobbying Parliament to try and raise awareness and to try and raise the fines for taxi drivers that refuse entry for those people who have assistance dogs. Do keep your calls coming in on that one today. Still no news. I'm looking at no news on the naked cyclists. The assistance dog users, as you heard, lobbying Parliament today. They're fed up of being turned away from cabs, taxis, Uber vehicles, minicabs. They're pretty fed up, and they want those who don't let them on board fined and fined heavily. Chris in Lowestoft has called. What do they do if they have a passenger who is unhygienic getting in the cab and doesn't smell so good? Surely taxi drivers should just have leather seats so they can be wiped down. It's awful not to accept someone who is visually impaired and their dog. The dog is his or her eyes. Chris in Lowestoft, thank you. A taxi driver in Ipswich, they do have some brand new cars on their fleet, says this taxi driver. He picks up guide dogs, but then he has to go home and vacuum his car straight away because their hairs go everywhere and the owner doesn't groom the dog. 01473 212121 is the number to join that debate today. Plus, we're still looking for more dog owners being turned away from cabs, hackney carriages, Uber vehicles, mini cabs. Emma's got in touch with us from Ipswich. Good morning, Emma.
Hello there.
Hi, thanks for joining us on the show. There is a lobby of Parliament. I believe you're taking part in that. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'm one of 6 guide dog owners travelling up to London this Wednesday. We're off to Westminster to lobby for access all areas because it's a ridiculous situation and people need to start paying attention of what's going on and the battles we are facing as guide dog owners.
Now tell me specifically about the situation with taxis and minicabs and these Uber vehicles. Have you experienced them refusing to take you?
I have had a taxi driver lock the door so I could not get in. He down the windows and was going, "No dogs, I'm not taking you, no dogs." And I explained that Jazz was a working registered assistance dog and Choose My Eyes, and he blatantly said, "I don't care, no dogs." At which point my parents stood in front of the car because he tried to drive away, and I was then explaining the law and saying, "You are eligible to take her, you cannot refuse." And he wouldn't unlock the doors without a great battle until I actually threatened to call his office and the police.
Where was this, Emma? Was this locally?
This was Ipswich. It wasn't it was local. It wasn't one of the big named companies at the time. But it's demoralising. It absolutely ruins your day, your mindset, and it's completely unnecessary. They can't pick and choose which laws they want to abide. Our dogs are not dirty. I was absolutely appalled by that comment as well. We, as guide dog owners, are trained as part of our qualification with a guide dog how to groom and clean our dogs every day. They do not go on the seats. They are trained to go into the footwells, and they will, 9 times out of 10, they'll just lay down in the footwell or the back of the car. So I don't know.
So there's, in your opinion, then there's really no excuse?
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Mark.
And do you find that you're experiencing discrimination elsewhere as well? I mean, you talk about the campaign being called Access All Areas. Are you still being discriminated against elsewhere?
This is a growing number in high street shops and hotels, restaurants, and people are pleading ignorance to the law, and that's not good enough. This is why Guide Dogs launched a national campaign, and we've done the petition collection earlier this year. We've exceeded 45,000 signatures, and we're off to Westminster to submit this on Wednesday. So
you stopped from going in shops?
Yes, just routine shops that, am I allowed to name and shame?
I'd rather you didn't, because they're not here to defend themselves. But
exactly. But yeah, local high street supermarkets, regular shops that sighted people are allowed to go in and go about their daily lives. Guide dog owners try to do the same, and they're just being turned away by members of staff, security guards, and saying that they can't go in because of the dog. And they don't make no secret that it's because of the dog. And despite people trying to explain it as a registered assistance dog, they are being sent away in tears or physically escorted off the premises.
What do you want
You'd
to
be
do?
astonished to learn that 3 out of 4 guide dog owners experience refusals.
What do you want to achieve from your trip to Parliament?
We are hoping that tougher penalties are in course and people start taking more notice of it rather than just sweeping it under the rug, because all they're going to get is a slap on the wrist. They're less likely to turn us away if there's fear of harsher penalties.
Emma, thank you very much for coming on today. Good luck on Wednesday. That's Emma, who's a guide dog user in Ipswich.